Hey everybody, after what has been an unduly long hiatus, taking full responsibility for that over here, we are back with another episode of Today New Brunswick, Tomorrow the World, with, as ever, Dan Hayward and myself. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Is that just kind of a perfunctory kind of response, or is
No,
it like
things are actually, I don't know. It's the tail end of my weekend, but it's been a pretty nice, relaxing weekend. So, and I've got a bit of
that's
vacation
cool.
coming up this week. It's my girlfriend's 40th birthday on Wednesday, so taking a couple days off after that to just sort of, hang out, and enjoy the festivities and that kind of thing. And I don't know. All in all, doing okay. How about yourself?
Well, that's all right, man. It's the personal nuances that maybe I missed somewhat from these conversations. For those who don't follow me at all on social media, which is probably most of you, if not all of you, I've gone through sort of a pretty. I went from being unemployed for a year and a half from my university job, and now I'm working in a completely different sector, which is cool. And I'm doing that in St. John, New Brunswick,
Ooh.
Fort City, and it's a pretty completely drastic turnaround from what I was up to in Kamloops, and it's all happened within 7 weeks, and I've put it out there. It's like, I crossed this country 5 times by airplane during that period, and I'll be double danged if I want to wish that experience on anybody, given the state of airlines right now. I've had people say just get as far, go to Bangor or something,
Yeah.
and then take American flights for your cross-continental thing, because it's way better, and it's like they actually have competition there.
Oh, you're frozen at the moment.
Dan, how are you doing, bud?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, it's
Everything
getting
you said before in the
everything I said
recording?
before. Yes, like I said, it's getting towards the end of the summer, but it's also the time of year where I tend to book a little bit of vacation time. So I'm looking forward to taking a little bit of time off in stretches over the next couple weeks and just relaxing. Yeah, I'm officially bifocals years old now. That was the other big development I forgot to mention. I'm just waiting to pick them up from the optometrist, but I've gotten to that point of life.
Bifocals as in readers, or
As
what do you
in,
mean?
well, no, as in like the both. Yeah, the lenses. I need the readers, and I need to accommodate different sorts of like vision at this point, just because of the wages of time and that sort of thing. But yeah, other than that, enjoying summer as best I can. And how's getting acclimatized to being back in New Brunswick going?
Oh yeah, no, it's a complete upgrade in every aspect, minus the fact that my kids are now on the other side of the country, but they're getting a little bit older, and just given the state of technology and whatever now, it's not like 1911 or 19 whatever.
Exactly.
They're going to meet their likely demise in friggin' trenches of Vimy or nothing. How many aspects of history can I just mangle in one go?
Yeah.
But truthfully, it was it wasn't so like I just had so many balls in the air. That kind of is what necessitated. I didn't plan on taking 2 months off from this or the other one, but it just was like, if I tried to do it, it would have been a bad job of it. And it also just would have been stressful in other regards. So, it's but I'll tell you, man, before we get properly into it, where's your stance on wildfires right now? Are you like, because you went through some pretty serious stuff in your city earlier, like in the spring, and now it's like, Maui, BC, is that any kind of a factor in your life right now?
Well, I mean, I was talking to my sister a couple of days ago on her birthday, and she's on the West Coast,
Yeah.
and those are pretty close. And like, my parents are in Alberta, so they're near where a lot of that's going on. And like, I have friends in like Soyuz and like those kind of places as well. Actually, a friend of mine was just supposed to move to Kelowna this week, and has put a pause on that decision.
You got to.
Yeah.
I was traveling through some airport, during one of those 5 times in a ridiculous, period. And at one point, when the Maui fires were like at their zenith, I saw on, airport TV screen, like Mick Fleetwood's restaurant going up in flames.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Utterly fascinated. And I couldn't hear it, but it was just Mick Fleetwood's, board side or whatever it's called, and the towering inferno. And like Mick Fleetwood was actually at my sister's wedding because my sister. Oh,
really?
Yeah. She's married to a gentleman who works as an executive in the hospitality industry.
Okay.
Part of his portfolio, for a period. I don't think anymore. I ended lately, but for quite a while, like going to Maui and helping Mick and his business partner run their restaurants over there. Like playing golf with Mick Fleetwood.
Oh, wow.
My brother-in-law doing that. It's the closest. That's the closest I've done to anything. Heard of anything famous. But it's just whoosh, And then my sister's putting in Instagram like a GoFundMe link for the people that used to work there and stuff. Like,
yeah.
Okay, this is bizarre and
that
just
is
post-apocalyptic and just whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So I moved back into the fog belt to answer your question. I moved into the fog belt. I moved into like the foggiest part of a foggy city in Atlantic Canada. And I love it. I'm just like, people should be like, I told my kids when I dropped them off, in Kamloops, I'm just like, if you want to like come here and be like climate refugees, I mean, I feel bad for your social lives, but I mean, it's an option. They got basketball hoops here too. They got PS5 here too. I mean, really, what else do you people have going?
Exactly.
So, anyway, man, thanks for asking. And this episode, Dan kind of threw it over to me, and I was just like, okay, so in terms of a topic, and I think I said anything but punk music or thereabouts.
Yes, you did.
So a topic defined by what it is not. So Dan, I'd be real interested to hear what you've come up with.
I took this in a few different directions.
Okay.
And one of them is, I know we said anything but punk, but my thoughts on this kind of tie into like, we reference a lot of how like local scenes were like a really important part of how a lot of music germinated for a long time. But like these days, talk about how it's not so much local scenes where music develops, but like sort of these virtual communities or like, networks of people in different parts of the world will have similar ideas. And this is an artist from, I believe they're from North Carolina, that I heard about from a friend of mine who works as a translator in Tokyo. And he had heard of them because he is part of an international community of vintage synth equipment enjoyers.
Oh man, that must be hardcore.
This is a band called it's sort of a solo project from Asheville, North Carolina, called That Demon the Sun. Specifically their latest release, Ghosted, which is their first release incorporating vocals. Previously it was just all ambient analog synth music. Recorded, they specify in the liner notes, recorded on sun damaged cassette in one take, for the most part. And Ghosted, their latest release, is their first time incorporating vocals, and it's really they've described themselves as like a mix of dungeon synth and vampiric bedroom pop. And I don't know if you're familiar with the dungeon synth scene.
Nope.
that's another one of these kind of like virtual communities that's spread up around the world, but kind of in two distinct flavors. It's actually initially something that initially germinated out of black metal.
I like it already.
Yeah, but it was like folks who were part of the black metal scene who wanted to try experimenting with more orchestral type sounds, but they didn't have access to orchestras. They had access to shitty keyboards.
So is this like trap music then, in a way?
This is more like soundtracks to imaginary Dungeons and Dragons games. Specifically, one of the innovators of the genre is a guy who goes by the name Mortiz, who never performs without prosthetic nose and ear stuff to make him look like an evil goblin, and usually performs like out in the woods, wearing like, little like fantasy costumes and shit, playing these like, ridiculous old old synthesizers, playing this like kind of spooky, like farty, like Dungeons and Dragons soundtrack stuff.
If you're gonna have a niche, that's one hell of a niche. I gotta
exactly.
say.
Actually, friends of mine went to go see him recently, and it was quite a performance. But a separate, there's that aspect of the dungeon synth scene that kind of takes itself very seriously. And then there's sort of a more tongue-in-cheek DIY sort of offshoot of that. That's artists like That Demon the Sun, and Grandma's Cottage is another one that I could think of off the top of my head. That are, it's a little sillier, a little tongue-in-cheek. Like That Demon the Sun's, like they have songs with names like "I Had to Eat My Horse," and moving into a castle, my 1000th birthday, drank too much blood, stuff like that. And it's all kind of like, silly, spooky, but just cool, mellow, like, just like
so
old analog synth music.
Is that like considered in the Appalachians still? Or?
I think kind of close, yeah. And it's like, North Carolina's
old Gothic kind of whatever.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if have you ever read the Harrow County graphic novels? I think that's what it's called.
I think actually I've got one of them, to be honest.
Yeah, those are. It's kind of those kind of are like a similar vibe of like spooky Southern Gothic, like stories of old witches and that kind of thing.
There we go.
And it's just kind of like Kelsey is the sort of single name person responsible for That Demon the Sun, who does like they handwrite all of the liner notes of their little cassette releases and hand draw the artwork, and it's just spooky little drawings of ghosts and castles and stuff. But there's like this whole international scene of people that just kind of they love old synths and will sit and record these like silly little fun songs and put out like cassette releases and put them on Bandcamp. And it's just this whole other community that's spread it off as like kind of a tongue-in-cheek iteration of this very serious but also very silly subgenre.
They're not doing that for the money, Dan.
It's definitely something for the. It's the same kind of thing. Like looking at like when you go on Bandcamp, like to look at their releases, it reminds me of like when you'd see the old, like really old, like Mountain Goats releases where it's just like some cassette on like Shrimper Records or something like that with like 6 songs about like going to Sweden or whatever. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, see, there's more bounce. It's quicker to bounce back when it's on your network than it is with mine for a variety of reasons. The least of which being that I don't pay for internet here as such. Beggars can't be choosers in that way.
Yeah.
So but it's sorry not to interrupt there.
No worries. I find that heritage homes tend to have like there's something in the walls that makes the internet shittier in general, from my experience. Also, like something in the plaster. But
it's an acceptable trade-off, I think, for me. Considering the
exactly
upgrades. I'm like. I'm with this place. It's so sick. I could turn the computer just a few more inches, and it'd just be like, there's the other chandelier, or there's freaking like Marco Polo replica on the mantle. Like, anyway, sorry, Val. Please continue.
That's okay. Well, I was kind of wrapping up there, but yeah, like, anyways, It was just this. I thought it was cool to find out about, this band that was part of like a very small niche international scene of like a different kind of just like lo-fi DIY fun music.
Fantastic.
That I found out about because of someone I know of, because we both like fucking weird indie wrestling. And we're part of one internet community that decided to start a different one to talk about music together. And this dude like lives in Japan and is sending me music recommendations over here in Halifax.
Wow.
For his friend's like fun synth project. So anyway, that was my first pick. How about yours, Matt?
Okay, well, I like the really cerebral and thoughtful approach because I would not have necessarily anticipated that. Not that it's surprising as such. Just, hey, you're really bringing it. So I guess for me, I look at that. I look at about 70% of my record collection, and it's more or less some variety of punk or alternative music.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine because I got like just a lot of records, and I'll just take a moment to sort of say, like when I'm out and about and listening to music, it tends to be just like literally there's like 3 or 4 or 5 records that I even listen to in that way. But then when I come back to my place, wherever that happens to be, I just throw on vinyl until I go to bed or, right when I get up in the morning. So it's not just like an Instagram gimmick, although a lot of it kind of is. But I guess when I sort of look at my collection as a whole, when I look at like what's not, punk or alternative or whatever kind of music, I'm like, well, what even is that? So I try to I sort of separated out like, oh, and we're back.
Hey.
More robust internet. So like I try to I was like, I got a pathetically low amount of rap records, as it turns out. But where I tend to have like more volume in my collection, typically, like if I just go into a record store and sort of gravitate towards something, I've listened to just since I started with the collection and seriously a couple of years back, I'm just like soul music from the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's just really, you don't have to convince me of anything, right? So Sam Cooke.
Nice.
Yeah, the first mile of the way. And what you see here is like Sam Cooke making his breakout from being a group gospel artist to his initial foray into being a solo singer. And what we have here is a triple 10-inch. So that in itself, as far as a record format, just tickles my nerddom. Tickles my nerddom, Dan. That's what it does. And it was also one of the first things I got at Sunrise Records, the corporate record chain. But they actually, I guess they're locally franchised.
Okay.
And the one at McAllister Place Mall in St.
Ooh,
John's.
McAllister Place. Wow.
I work basically 5 minutes a walk away from McAllister Place. So it's like my transit point to and from uptown St. John. And so I just wander around there, I'll get my veggie burger at A&W and then also see what's up here in terms of vinyl. So just in terms of the packaging here, just besides the fact it's like a 3 record where it starts out like the Soul Stirrers, the group ensemble, sort of the second one, the second one, or the first record. The second record is like the Soul Stirrers live, like a whole gig. And then the third one is like demos, like Sam Cooke, private, whatever, industry demos, making his way into his solo career. But not only that, I mean, it's just one of these packages like where this is the kind of shit that makes me glad to be a record collector. It comes with this like envelope, and then inside the envelope is like time-specific memorabilia, like just correspondence, handwritten letters, and like little replicas of like the original media billings, like just all this random just paper that they just stuffed into it. And I'm like, they didn't have to friggin' do that. They just like the care that goes into that, right? So yeah, even like gospel and spiritual records, circa 1960, whatever. So apart from the fact that it takes someone who I consider just like one of the best vocalists, you know, of the 20th century at all, if not ever, and the care and that goes into that, and then I mean, it's just a formative time in a fantastic, you know, serious artist,
Mm-hmm.
kind of finding their way from, you know, their early stage career to what ultimately, you know, he become known for, one of the best soul singers ever. So yeah, that's one of the things I grabbed at here. So,
Cool.
yeah, man. So what's your
All
number
right.
two?
My number two, well, this is one that, like, I guess a name that was kind of in the news for unfortunate reasons around the time that this topic first got proposed, but like, oh, hey, and you're back again. All right. Anyways, like I was saying, but like, you know, in my mind stands, you know, up there with like your Dylans and your Bob Marleys, your Leonard Cohens as just like icons of music. And that's Sinead O'Connor. Like,
Okay.
yeah, like rest in peace to the god kind of thing. She just passed away recently, but like, and it was, and I hadn't thought about her music in a while, but like, it was just such a huge part of like, say that like late 80s, early 90s, just like, you know, the world at the time.
Very much.
Like, you know, and like, I mean, I guess her second album was a real breakout. I Do Not Want and I Have Not Got, but even like, you know, Lion in the Cobra, like I remember that kind of, like some of the videos from that getting play on like Much Music, like, you know, when I was young and just sort of trying to figure out what stuff was. And but still, like, you know, like she was just such a, you know, such an innovator. Like I didn't realize, I watched that documentary that Showtime did about her a couple years ago, Nothing Compares, to sort of prepare for this. And like, I didn't realize that she was like a survivor of like the Magdalen laundries in Ireland.
Yeah. That's the like sect that victimized her section. Like she was.
Yeah, that was like the
right.
Yeah, like that was sort of where all that happened, and like, you know, which makes it understandable certain, you know, things that she did later on in her career, and the reason that she was so outspoken about stuff that she was outspoken about. But it was just,
she suffered a great personal tragedy too, right? Like her son
definitely
died by suicide that long ago.
Yeah, like her life was not easy. But like, you know, she was amazing. Like,
very much.
There's no way to describe her other than just amazing. Like, you know, I've watched it's her version of like I think it's a traditional Irish song, I'm Stretched on Your Grave. That's on the it's also on I Do Not Want What I Have Not Got. And it's just like, it just sends chills down my spine. And I've listened to it so much, and it's just her. Like, there's a really good, actually, I'll put the live video of it that I've been watching a bunch on YouTube in the notes. It's just her. It's her on stage with a reel-to-reel machine, just playing like a James Brown drum loop, and then singing this like beautiful traditional Irish song over top of it, just like heart-wrenchingly. And it's just, you know, it's like she didn't, like, people shamed her because she wasn't what they thought she was supposed to be, you know, in terms of like, you know, some sort of popular music performer where she did what she wanted to do, she said what she wanted to say, and she did not give a fuck, and, you know, made amazing art in the process, and, you know, had a hard life, definitely. But like, you know, it was kind of great to be reminded how good all of the stuff she did was, even if it was unfortunately because of her passing. But like, yeah, like I just had, with that topic especially, it's just like I had to include her on my list, you know? Like,
yeah, no, for sure, man. What you're describing, like sort of the I don't know, posthumous appreciation, that's kind of what I experienced when Mark Lanigan from Green Trees passed away February 2nd, 2022, or February 22nd, 2002. And I'd been aware of him as a singer. I'd, you know, checked out some of his releases, but I was just like, okay, I'm going to like go all in. I'm going to read his book. I'm going to get a bunch of the records. And what you're describing, just like when you realize, like, even after the fact, like, wow, this person just really opened themselves up a lot, and you know, we gave us more than what we probably deserved.
Exactly.
Live, you know, and thank goodness they did, right? Really,
Yeah.
as that goes. So, good call, man.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention about Sinead O'Connor though is that
Sure.
like in looking at her early stuff, it was really like interesting seeing how much she embraced hip hop early on as well. Like she had MC Light on a remix of one of the songs from her first album, like before people really knew who either of them would have been.
Right.
Like, and it's just like this weird meeting of the two, but it's like MC Light kind of fits perfectly because she's like, you know, a really strong, outspoken, like, you know, female rapper from New York, you know, with this like very strong, outspoken, like female singer from Ireland. And they just kind of like met in the middle on this, you know, kind of cool remix of her song. But anyways, and
yeah, it's a little bit conceptually more advanced than like, you know, Run DMC and Aerosmith.
Anyways, I will turn mine over to you.
Okay, but seriously, I think actually just like, again, I kind of just grab stuff that from my box of, so in my new system, I've got like just, you know, I got the punk music or the rock music, and then I got in certain boxes, and then the other boxes, I just got everything else. So I went through everything else, and I think this actually kind of speaks pretty well to, you know, you're thinking about Sinead. Nina Simone.
Oh.
Nina Simone and her friends, an intimate variety of vocal charm. And this is like early in her career because, I mean, it is. It came out in 1960. And, you know, so it would have just been like one of her probably first recorded albums. And it's all, you know, like American songbook kind of stuff for a lot of it. But like just the fact that even at this point in her career, she has like 4 or 5 originals on here. Okay, so that song, He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, that, you know, he's got, like, according to this, she wrote it. Like, she's credited as the writer.
Wow.
So I didn't know that. And then, well, okay, so maybe it's just her arrangement of it, because then I see it's like, I Love You. She did not write I Love You.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, so anyway, I mean, just speaking as to me, someone how I can just listen to forever. So like I kind of know when I look at my, you know, pop music or my rock or whatever, I just like, man, there's really lamentable lack of female representation here. I'll be, you know, just the middle class friggin' douche that I am. But then when I look at, you know, my soul music and you know, jazz and whatever, I'm like, it's like almost, you know, it's not 50-50, but it's a lot more evenly skewed. So, and I just look at someone like Nina Simone, who, I mean, just, you want to talk about somebody who struggled personally with mental health crises, with people writing her off in her career. There's a Netflix documentary about Nina, and it's actually like an older documentary because I remember seeing it like at least 5 years ago. It might even be longer. And it just, but really, you know, one thing, I don't remember you, Gary Oldman as a thief with a young girl. What's that movie? The Professional, Beyond the Professional?
Yes.
There was like a running thread where he and this girl, little girl he's protecting, you know, this honorable thief protecting this little girl, or you know, this, I can't remember which. Their point of connection is they both like Nina Simone. And I remember seeing this like on DVD in Halifax when I was like, you know, just before the internet, more or less, before the internet, had movies on it, and like, you know, down on friggin' like Pepperell Street or some, you know, we're gonna get this remedy by next time, Dan.
Okay.
The dropping out here, but we're coming back here pretty well. And I was dating a woman who just like, she was like, the relationship did not last, nor was it meant to, but she really gravitated to Nina Simone because she was a very powerful, strident young woman in her own way. And yeah, I'm just like, so since I got back onto, I'm just going to own all the vinyl that I can. Like anytime I go past her in the shop, I'm just like, yep. So actually, I got to give credit to London Drugs in downtown Kamloops for hooking me up with a few of her releases, including that one. So it's just, it's like with Sam Cooke, it's the same level of like personal, passion and personal like intensity given over to like, well, it's American Songbook or it's like a gospel number or whatever, but it's like they own it. They're just making it their own in so many ways. You just can hear, where they're coming from. These young people, in their 20s or whatever, like just, I'm saying this now, like the young Nina Simone, the young Sam Cooke, because now I just see most people as being, oh, you're young. So anyway, bud, kind of a ramble there at the end.
That's
but
okay.
That was number 2. So.
All right. Yeah. So my number 3 is one of my favorite summertime records of the past couple years, which is Tyler the Creator's "Call Me If You Get Lost."
You mentioned Tyler the Creator before on the show, have you not?
Yes. And I mean, this album was it's his most recent album, and I got to say, it was the first one where he really clicked for me. Like, I mean, he's somebody who's been around for like probably at least over a decade now. Making music, on his own and with Odd Future, like the collective he was part of.
Right.
And like, I gotta be honest, like the early stuff, I just never really clicked with me. It was just a little kind of edgelordy at times, and just like not necessarily where I was at. But
Right.
like, everybody gets older, everybody goes through things. And it's Call Me If They Get Lost. It's not like an official concept album, but it's kind of a loose concept album, just about like trying to work through the end of a really messy love triangle while realizing you may not be the hero of the story. While also having the nagging little voice in the back of your head saying like, fuck it, let's just go party. Like, who cares? Why do we need to process? Why do we need to learn things? That's all set up by like, it's a mix of like this kind of almost like Wes Anderson-y travelogue with a lot of kind of like bossa nova sounds behind it, and like really kind of bright pastel aesthetics in the album art and like accompanying videos and stuff. And like, sort of a lot of travel themes where, he's carrying like an old time suit, like an old fashioned suitcase in like all of the videos and stuff, and usually in some form of transit. And yeah, it'll mix from like, these songs sort of going a little deeper into like talking about parts of his past that he might not have been more open about, like, his mom experiencing homelessness early in his music career and like that kind of thing, and just sort of like where he was at, like sort of talking about how he's been trying to work on himself and grow as a person while also being also as an artist, while at the same time having sort of long time iconic like mixtape DJ Drama, or like who was like, he was the host of a lot of like mixtapes for like folks like Lil Wayne back in the aughts, who he plays sort of the voice of the id the whole time, who will like pop up in songs just being like, yeah, we're having a great time here, we're eating ice cream with supermodels, come on, let's go on the boat. And then like, it'll go into like, just a song sort of referencing more the sort of ongoing drama that he'd been working through, but like, with all these little drops, like other little side drops, just sort of showing the side of things that just makes him, what he thinks about just sort of just saying like, fuck it, let's go party instead. Why do we have to think about this? But like, just it's some of the better music he's done as well. Like he works a lot with like Frank Ocean, who's like ghostwritten for everybody as well. And like, he's one of the better hip hop producers of the past 20 years. And it's just kind of like, I feel like he's just finding new legs, these like with his past couple releases, and like, just mature. I hate to say maturing a little bit, but maturing a little bit. There was sort of a deluxe reissue of the album. Like it came out in 2021. But they re-released it with a deluxe edition this year with like a bunch of bonus tracks and like remixes and that kind of thing. Like some of the songs are pretty short. Yeah, deluxe. And it's like, some of the songs are just as long as they need to be. It might only be 80 seconds worth of an idea, but it's a good 80-second idea. And like, that's it. And it's just, it's just like it's an album that like you can put on and have in the background, and it's just like, you know, a really like good, well produced kind of interesting, fun hip hop record. But you sit down and listen to it, and it's like, oh yeah, you know, this guy was going through some shit. And yeah, it's just it's something that just feels more like something you would listen to in the summer. And so yeah, I
And it
want to
came
put
out
that on my list as well.
Did you say?
Pardon?
This album came out earlier this year, did you say?
The deluxe edition came out this year. It was originally released in 2021.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, man, that sounds rad. And what I, really appreciate about rap and hip hop is like, not even just in a reactionary way, but they're just like, they're way less hidebound to, typical quote unquote music formats, because like they're literally starting with the voice, and whatever can be, whatever's at hand, that's the starting point, as opposed to, the grandiloquent, friggin' classical, whatever, Euro song structure that the inheritance is of rock, right?
Yeah.
So, well, and I guess I'm just going to kind of go through here now, and because there's a few. So this is the kind of thing too, where it's like I don't ever talk about my interest just like in jazz enough, and so this is Wynton Kelly Trio with Wes Montgomery. So Wynton Kelly, and I can't even tell you, he's a piano player, right?
Okay.
Okay. But Wes Montgomery, guitar player extraordinaire. And this is just one of those things where it's like, I see it, it's $29. Like, I'm just going to get it because why the hell not? And then I throw it on and I'm never disappointed. It's just smoking. It's just like, it's, it's like, and I was sort of, music without the vocal on it. It's like, you can just sort of throw it on and just kind of be around it. It doesn't require the same, level of attention. But then when you do pay attention to it, it's friggin' deeply rewarded, because it's like, really, these guys are just doing that. Yeah, Wes Montgomery was introduced to me by, you remember for Fredericton, a guy named Nick Vipond?
Oh, yes, I remember Nick Vipond.
Right. His dad was a psych prof at STU, and he, was like, I don't know, I met him at FHS. He was like a year or two behind me, and, he just became part of the crew that kind of we associated with and hung out with, and hung out with at Officer Square and whatever. The Nick's thing, as a younger man, and I haven't been in touch with him, a long, long, long time, definitely too long. Nick, if you're listening to this, add me on Facebook, pal, or whatever. But he was somebody who just like, he was like the one people out of my friends who like, he knew about jazz at a pretty high level, because he man. Okay.
All right.
I really like this Wes Montgomery and Wynton Kelly Trio record, Dan.
Nice.
Yeah, it's all right. It's good. And I definitely appreciate throwing on the jazz music and doing. I'm getting defeated by glitching out here, man. I don't know.
Oh, do you want to?
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say thank you to Nick Vipond, sincerely, pal, if you're listening, for getting me onto this stuff. It's been a persistent interest in my life, and I can't even tell you what instrument.
Okay, it's back.
Is it?
But yeah, this could be half an episode. I still had two more things I wanted to talk about.
Please do.
Did you want to do these now, or should we?
Let's do it. Go for it.
Okay. I'll try and do it quick-ish, but yeah, Anyways, I had two other things I wanted to talk about. The first of which is a piece of, I guess, Canadian rock history, sort of, that got unearthed recently through Supreme Echo Records that I've mentioned before on the show. From shout out to Jason and Victoria with the store and the awesome Reissues label. And this is a band from Victoria from circa late 60s, early 70s called As Sheriff. And their LP, sort of their many years posthumous LP that just got released this year, 6 Ways to the Ace. And yeah, As Sheriff were kind of like bluesy, folky, psychedelic rock. Like, it's very much like, this isn't like, your friendly, like, listen to the Flower People, like, ready for, sort of plastic flower child kind of stuff. Like, these are like, dirty freak out, 60s psychedelia types, singing songs about dodging the draft and hating the man. And it's just, it's just like, I guess the reason that Jason initially found out about the band is he managed, like, they put out one single, like, in the early 70s with just, it's like song and a B-side. That's it. Like, 2 tracks. And he heard it and was like, these guys are from Victoria? I'm like, what the hell? And, did everything he could to track them down. Like, he tracked down the 2 surviving members of the band. And, found this one recording they did at a local radio station, I think, back in the early 70s. And yeah, it's just like a cool little tidbit of Canadian rock history, because you don't really think, when you think of like Canadian music in the 60s, it's like, it's got a Bachman or a Turner or an Overdrive somewhere in there usually, or like one of those guys, or like a Burton Cummings or something, maybe a little Neil Young, but like these guys were kind of holding it down on the West Coast. Like, they seemed sort of like the kind of band that, like, if the Doors came through Vancouver, they probably would have opened up for them, like that kind of thing. And yeah, it's just like a cool little piece of Canadian rock history that Jason does. And yeah, it's available on the Supreme Echo Bandcamp. I'll put the link in the notes. And I did have one other thing that I wanted to talk about on the show.
Please do, dude.
Because I took anything but punk, and it's as we talked about earlier. I can't remember if it was in the first version of the show or the second version of the show, the second version of the intro that we did. That, things have been getting a little hectic in terms of like fires and storms and that sort of thing, and get a little stressed out. And sometimes, I'm a person that's like prone to anxiety and depression anyway. So sometimes I just need a fucking laugh. And I appreciate a good novelty song every once in a while. And, when used in moderation. And the thing that's been sort of hitting that sweet spot for me lately is the Northern Boys. I don't know if you're familiar with the Northern Boys at all. There are a couple elderly retired ex-teachers from Northern England, Patrick Carney and Norman Payne. And their mate Kev, who's their backup dancer, who's just another elderly gentleman who wears a suit and kind of goes like this in the background while they're performing. And their songs are very liberally cribbed usually from other artists' tracks, like sort of like popular dance music, or like, their first song, Party Time, was basically takes the beat from American Boy by Estelle. But yeah, it's just these 2 old men from Northern England just rapping incredibly, like, just inspired, filthy lyrics about drugs. And the chorus of the song, one of the lines in the chorus of the song is, "Do you want to make love to a sad old man?" And it's just, yeah, just complete, just silly gonzo lyrics over top of like fun, catchy beats. They have 4 songs. It's Party Time, Nobody Likes Me, All Aboard the Sexy Train, and I can't remember what the other song is. But yeah, it's just, like I said, these 2 little old men from Northern England who rap, and they've Yeah, they've released 4 songs. 3 of them are on streaming. There's entertaining music videos. They're very supportive of like the LGBTQ community in England at a time when a lot of people are very vocally not that. And that's been a thing that sort of like people have sort of like, has garnered some fans. Because like I said, there's these 2 little old men that you wouldn't expect to be like allies while also talking about like doing ludicrous amounts of cocaine and basically like, like saying they don't need a car because they can just crawl home like a beetle. And just with the delivery, like I said, it's just sometimes I need a goddamn laugh. And sometimes that laugh is provided by watching these 2 little old men from Northern England rap about like drugs and ludicrous sex and how their wives hate them and make them sleep in the front yard. And like, it's just, it's fun. It's, I don't know if the joke would hold up for a full album, but like 4 or 5 songs, that's fine for me. Like, put them on, need a laugh, entertain, there we go. And, they seem, like I said, they're not, it doesn't seem like they're doing anything from like a mean-spirited place at all. 1 or 2 ex-wife references aside, but I mean, hey, what are you going to do? But like, yeah, it's just fun, silly novelty, like pop hip hop music with, minding that trope of old person says incredibly filthy things. The Northern Boys, check them out.
Hey, anyone who's listening to this or watching this, this is Matt, and this is about a month after 3 weeks after the episode was recorded. I greatly apologize for the choppiness of the video feed. We're dealing with a different kind of internet connection here than what I was accustomed to in Kamloops, and so hence a number of not so subtle and extremely tiresome and exhausting little dropout segments there. Speaking of dropouts, kids, don't forget to stay in school. This is Matt from the future signing off and saying better video quality and connection on the next episode of Today New Brunswick, Tomorrow the World.